Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Women in Trades, the 4%. I'm super excited. Today I have Abigail here with me, daddysmoney00 on social media, and she is an agricultural heavy mechanic, and we're going to get right into her telling us about how she got into her job.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. I never wanted to be a mechanic. I actually always thought I was going to go into more agricultural side of things. I grew up on a dairy farm. So I was like, oh, my life is always going to be working on a farm, whether it be owning my own farm or just kind of like managing a farm, something along those lines. And then in 2019, my little sister actually passed away. And it was kind of a big eye opener that, life is actually pretty short and you can't just play safe by what you know. Like my parents always were around agriculture, always brought us around agriculture, so that's what I knew. And so my grandpa had an auto repair shop, so I spent a lot of time there, and I kind of started to ease my way more into that. And he kind of gave me, like, I don't want to say like come to Jesus meeting, but it was kind of like a come to Jesus meeting that if I wanted to go into something like this, the best route isn't to work for a family business because you're almost, I don't want to say coddled, but you're kind of coddled. People treat you a little bit different.
Yeah.
So he kind of found me a job at a different local shop, and I talked to the guy, and at the time I was also working in a farm store, so we decided that the best route to take was for me to work part-time there, and then the summer was coming up, so if I wanted to go full-time, I could go full-time. So I started part-time, and it was okay. It was a job. It was kind of easing my way into it. And then I went full-time in the summer. And then after about 6 or 7 months working there, I was like, okay, auto mechanics really isn't for me. It's a lot of the same things over and over again. So that was about the time that I had our local John Deere dealer reach out to me, and they were like, hey, we've had some people send some recommendations, and I'd also put an application in for being like a receptionist just to kind of get my foot in the door. Like that's actually what I wanted to do, but it was just more of I kind of want to reach into this like place almost.
Absolutely.
And so they actually reached back out and were like, we've had some people like recommend you to us as like an apprentice for a mechanic. So I was like, say less, this is what I want to do. And history kind of writes itself from there. So I've been there ever since, working on agricultural equipment.
That's awesome. So first of all, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thanks.
My mom passed away in 2018, and that's like what got me into the trades. So I find it always really interesting because a lot of us, it's almost like we have a big life shifting event, and that's almost what like changes our path to get us into like the blue collar world. But it shows the beauty of like how you can turn an event like that into something and make it better and better yourself and not let it, ruin your life.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge eye opener on how short life actually is. And it almost
Mhm.
is like, do I want to play it safe for the rest of the life, or do I want to do something that I enjoy? Do I want to take risks? Do I want to live life to the fullest, or do I just
For
want to
sure.
sit here and just be like, okay, this is my life?
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I've said it in past episodes, but my motto has always been life is too short to do anything that you don't like. And so when I tell women who want to try a trade, I'm like, try it, and if you do not enjoy it, try something else. That's the beauty of it. There's so many different, just like you found out that auto mechanic like wasn't the path that you wanted to take. And I can see how that could be repetitive for sure. But yeah, and you ended up where you are, so that's super awesome. I know that you had a family business, so is that kind of like what sparked your interest in it all basically?
Yeah, so between like growing up on a farm, that kind of, I always kind of wanted to be around agriculture. And then as far as mechanics as a whole, my grandpa's always kind of been my big motivator within mechanics. He's been a mechanic since he was super young, and he's stuck with it. He's retirement age now, and he
Yeah.
still is a mechanic. It's kind of one of those things that, like, once you've done it for so long, you can't just give it all up. So he's kind of always been my big motivator to be a mechanic. And then once I learned about ag mechanics, it was like a big, oh my gosh, I can combine the two and still work with farmers every day and still enjoy that part of my life, and then still work with actual mechanics and be like
Yeah.
my grandpa.
That's awesome. So for the viewers who have like absolutely no idea, what is a day in your work day like? Do you go out in the field or are you mainly in a shop working?
It's a little bit of both. So with agriculture, we have busy times of the year, and then we have a lot slower times of the year. So my schedule really revolves around what the farmer's schedule is.
Mhm.
So in the springtime, up until about now, we have a lot more farm calls. So I have a lot more what we call service calls, and I'll go out on the road. And typically, my mentor will go with me, and we fix a lot of equipment, whether it's in the field or at the customer's location on their farm itself. And we basically fix everything out of a service truck. And if we don't have what's in the service truck, like whether it be parts that we forgot to bring or didn't know we needed, we have to go back to the store and go get it. And we also, like now, so it's winter time, we do a lot of inspections, like preventative maintenance inspections and oil changes, stuff like that, just to prepare for the upcoming harvest seasons.
Yeah.
And we work mostly out of the shop.
That's awesome. So I assume you work on a lot of like combines and tractors and farm equipment, of course.
Yeah, so I started on combines and kind of learned that it wasn't for me. They're a lot slower paced. They're a big machine. There's a lot to them, but they move slow. Everything moves slow within them. And from there, there's two terms that people use. So there's either self-propelled forage harvester, or what we call them is choppers. And it does basically what it sounds like. It chops feed. You put hay or corn into it, or any other type of forage, and it chops it into basically confetti. But everything moves at such a high rate of speed, and it's actually quite insane because all the components that move really fast are like right underneath your feet. So it's high risk, high reward. If I like mistighten a bolt or something, it's like really high risk that it's going to come up through the floorboard.
That's scary.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
scary, but it's like an insane feeling knowing that like everything I'm doing is like right underneath someone's feet.
Absolutely. That's a lot of trades. I mean, if your weld fails, things can blow apart and kill someone. I mean, you and that's why you need to be good at what you do, and that's why we have mentorship and apprenticeships and everything so that we can get good at what we do. So, going back to that, I know you said like you work with a mentor. So, how
Yeah.
long is that program? What's that like for you?
So it's not like a set in stone program at this point, but because I went through trade school and everything.
Mhm.
But so he basically, when I worked on combines, I worked with a different guy, and I wasn't really, I'm gonna say excelling. I kind of wasn't. It wasn't my groove. It wasn't my cup of tea almost. And he kind of seen that, and he pulled me under his wing. And since then, I've kind of flourished. So him and I are like this big old go-to team. We're like the A team is what I always call us. And we basically just work hand in hand and cover all of the choppers. So basically what he's trying to do is get me fully up to speed, get me to the point where I can just solely go out on my own service calls, out to fix my own things. So I'm to a point where I don't ever need to ask questions, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like everyone's
Absolutely.
always going to ask questions, but basically he's trying to get me to his knowledge point.
For sure. It's a learning process. Like I work with grown men who have to call the project manager sometimes. Like I've never done this and I honestly need help, and
Yeah.
it's refreshing to know that not everybody knows everything, especially how vast some of our careers are. To
Mhm.
just know everything is almost impossible. So I always say like if you're not learning something every day, what was even the point, you know?
Yeah, there's been a couple projects that we've done that he's fully admitted. He's like, I've never done this before, and you can just take it. You can have the project. And he's almost, I think he's got like maybe 10 years till he retires, but it's still like 10 years might not seem like a long time, but it also is like a good amount of time where I need to start learning the things and the
Mhm.
more advanced technology and things like that, because it's just going to keep getting more advanced, and it makes more sense that I learn it and get good at it versus him.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy the amount of people that are gonna retire in your workforce. Do you notice that it's mostly older generations? Do you see a lot of younger people or no?
Let's see. I think we've got like 10 guys in our shop, and I want to say two of them, myself included, we are under the age of 25.
Yeah.
All of the rest of them, I think we have this year like three guys retiring. It's
It's
insane.
crazy. I think I saw that it was like 330,000 welders that they were gonna need in like the next
Yeah.
5 years because so many people are retiring. And I'm
Yeah.
sure any blue collar trade or anything like that, it's so needed because it hasn't been pushed in schools for so long. But I feel like it finally is again. And some of the younger girls that I've talked to, they were pushed to do
Mhm.
trades programs in high school and stuff. So they're definitely like bringing it back, which is super freaking important. So you don't work with any other women, do you?
No. We have service writers that are women, but other than that, I'm the only female in the shop, and
Yeah.
it's insane to think about. And I know, so I've been with my company for 2 years now, and I know that like some of the guys have told me that like when I was coming in, they were like, "She's not gonna make it. Like she's gonna quit within 3 months," and it's
Mhm.
insane the stigma that follows, and it's kind of one of those things that it's just, I don't want to say sad, but it almost is sad. There's those handful of women that do almost, so they get into it and they're like, this is not what I expected at all. And
Mhm.
then there's also the vast majority of us that they're like, this is what we're doing, this is what we want to do, this is what we're here to do, and this is what we are going to do. And they break down the walls, they break down the barriers. And I think that if there is more women who do break down the barriers, then the women that aren't so sure about it can come in and actually realize that, hey, this is actually what I want to do. I think they're just very intimidated coming in.
Yeah, and I think that's why social media and all of us that have a social media presence, it helps a lot because I've had so many women like message me or comment and they're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is what I want to do." So to see an actual woman doing this, or they're even like, "I went to welding school because you inspired me." So
Mm-hmm.
I think that it really helps to bring awareness. And so I definitely love our social media community that we have because it definitely gets the word out there to get more women.
Yeah, definitely. I think that social media is a big, it's very helpful. But if I had to give any advice, I used to post on social media all the time. But I am a corporate girly. I have a corporate job, and I would just make sure that if you also are a corporate girly, corporate job, you just read your company's policies about it, because it can come back and bite you in the butt for it. So I would just, that's my piece on it. Just make
That's
sure that,
really,
yeah, make sure that you are within the guidelines, because sometimes you actually do more harm for yourself than good
yeah,
for
that's
others.
really, really good advice, especially if you're at a place that you really like and you like your career.
Yeah.
It's always good to make sure that it's okay before filming at work or anything like that, and to generally keep your workplace or coworkers out of it at least.
Yeah.
But
It's hard because sometimes people just want to, I don't want to use the word influencer, but they're trying to be like, they see an influencer and they're like, oh my gosh, I can do this too.
yeah,
But if I had to give any advice, maybe don't record on a job site. Maybe don't record customer things. Maybe just keep it in, I don't want to say like, I don't, I hate sound like this. Maybe keep it in your car, keep it to yourself type thing. And if you want to give advice, be like, hey, I'm a girly in the trade. Maybe don't do it in your uniform, or because I know like with me, I have uniforms with my company name, my company
yeah,
type logo type thing. Maybe do it in your like everyday clothes and then promote what you do.
yes. Especially because you work for a recognizable company too, so
Yeah.
people see that logo and they're like, "Oh, I know." Me, I don't even work for a recognizable company, and I always keep my logo covered up, and people online are not people, it's men, are always, like, trying to talk smack and be like, "Oh, but you're never working, you're always in your car," because I'm mostly recording content on break. I know the job sites that we're not allowed to video or photograph on, and when I'm on those job sites and I still wanna push content, like, I'll make a little video in my car on break or lunch because I'm sitting there for 15 minutes or 30 minutes. I have nothing else to do. And they're like, "You don't ever work. You're always in your car." Like, bro, I don't make content because I'm working.
Right. Feel like,
I wish that I could just like record all the time, but believe it or not, some of us really are like actually working.
literally, do you want me to just sit here and do nothing at my job and just make videos instead? Like,
And there's some girls that like are really good at working and recording, like Carly the
that's
Sparky, her content is awesome, like, but
that's
I
how I
just,
used to be.
dude, I always want to, and the only time I can do it is like if I'm in the shop, and then even then I'll be like, I'm gonna make a video of like how to purge stainless today, and I'll like record half of it and then forget because I
Yeah.
get so caught up like in actually working. I just can't multitask. Some
Yeah.
people can, I can't.
Yeah. For sure.
That's okay though. So, yeah. So, what would you say that your biggest challenge has been so far in your career?
Gosh, I think that my biggest challenge has definitely been the shift of like, so when I worked in agriculture, I didn't work on the mechanic side of things. I worked with the animals. I can ramble off 1,010 facts about animal health. I could tell you how to breed a cow. I could tell you all these things. I could not tell you how to do anything on a chopper. I didn't even run a chopper before coming to work for my company. So I think that like the biggest challenge actually is learning how to do all this and then just combating myself and my self-doubt and being like some days I wake up and I'm like I don't want to go to work because I don't know what it's called, but it's almost like you touch something and it's just you have those days where you touch something and it just everything goes wrong. Like you break a bolt, you snap a bolt in half, trying to like tighten it, and it's just like okay, crap. And then you go to take it out, and it just makes it worse. And it's like
Yeah.
okay, crap. What the hell do I do now?
My
And it just
Friday was like that.
mine was too. Literally speaking on what I actually did.
Literally.
But it's just you have the bad days and you're like maybe I'm not actually cut out for this, and then you have another day where it's absolutely amazing and it's
Yeah.
like okay, I love my job, I love my career, I love what I'm doing with my life.
Yeah, I have imposter syndrome so bad, so I really relate to that. And then it's so real, like literally my difference from like my Thursday to my Friday. Like
Yes.
Thursday, I was so good at welding, all my fits were great, like I was having a great day. And then Friday, like everything just went to hell. Everything was crooked that I was welding. It was like having to cut stuff apart. It just was not. I'm like, what? But it's just like it's difficult and some days aren't easy and you just have to make sure it's worth it really at the end of the day.
My imposter syndrome is so bad when I see customers that like normally I'll hide behind my mentor and let him talk to them because I am so worried that like I'm going to say the wrong thing and the customer's going to know that I'm saying the wrong thing, but half the time they don't even know what I'm talking about. They're just like, "Yep, fix my stuff." And
Mhm.
it's just like, why am I doubting myself? Like I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. If I can literally fix this, I can talk about it. But it's like that little piece of me that is actually quite large, I guess, is just like, you can't do this. Why are you doing this? You can't talk about this. And it's just, I don't know, it's just so irksome. It's like, why do you have to be like this sometimes? It's like the whole social anxiety kicks in.
I feel that 100%. Absolutely.
I'm just like,
So what would you say your biggest success has been thus far in your career?
oh gosh, I think that my biggest success has been before I went to trade school and I was still working with my same company. Actually, they put me on a job and it was originally just going to be to like we had a 9-liter engine come in and it had blown a rod like through the engine block, and the block was like completely shattered. And they had thrown me on it originally just to strip the block, like strip the whole engine down to pull it out of the machine. And I was like, okay, I can do this. I think I've literally not trained on anything. I've never done anything like this before, but if you think I can do it, I can do it. And they like sicked me on it all by myself. And then my mentor that I have now, this was like one of the first, like when we first were like mentor mentee, he was like, we actually don't have anybody to put the reman engine in and time the reman and do all of that sort of stuff. So you have to do it. And I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, I literally have never touched an engine before this, as far as like this extent. And he was like, no, like, you're fine. You can always ask me questions. It's not a big deal. But you tore the last one down. You know how all those parts came off. Here's all the new like gaskets and seals and everything. You're putting all the components back on this one. You're timing this engine and you're putting it back in the machine. And it's like, it was insane. And I did it. And I did it mostly by myself. There was a few times where I needed help, but it was like the feeling of it starting for the first time. And there was like minor leaks, which you can expect with a new engine, but there was nothing major, and it's still running to this day. It's been about a year and a half, and it's just like such a glorious feeling. Like, I had no training. I've never done this before. And it's just like, oh my God.
That's dope, dude. I don't know if I could do something. I mean, if I learned eventually, I'm sure I could, but that requires a lot of attention to detail. Like, that's
Yes.
awesome.
I literally had to put my earbuds in and turn on music and like tone out the entire world and not talk to anybody. And I had like 80 pictures of how everything came apart and everything went together. And I had like zip ties, like color coded zip ties and paint marks and like Ziploc bags of components everywhere. Like, everything was sorted. And I was like, nobody talk to me. I can't talk to anybody. Like, just let me do what I need to do.
So, what would your biggest piece of advice be? Was that what you were saying with the social media, or do you have another piece of advice for women that want to join a trade?
I have another piece of advice. Do not prioritize your work over your mental health. I think that is like a super huge thing. And I kind of grew up in a family that it was like mental health wasn't something you talked about. You didn't go see therapists, you didn't do anything like that. And I didn't start taking my mental health serious until I want to say like 6 months ago. And I started going to a therapist and I started doing all the things. And I honestly think my life has been so much better. And it's such a, I want to say, taboo topic within the trades that it's like,
Mhm.
you don't focus on your mental health. You don't talk to a therapist. Like, you are a big, strong, tough tradie. You don't do those things. That makes you weak. And I don't see it that way. Like, your mental health is something so serious that you can't give your best work if your actual self is so empty. Like, if you wake up in the morning and you're like, I can't do anything, like, I'm so exhausted, just drained mentally, you can't give out your best work. And I've seen like a big shift in my work from when I was just absolutely drained every day till now. It's just insane to me. And I think that even if you don't think that you need therapy, or if you don't think you need any sort of help, I think you should still try it. And you should still go see someone or go talk about something, because you can actually be amazed by what it can do for you. I think that's one of my biggest pieces of advice.
That is really great advice, and thank you for sharing that, because no one has actually shared that yet, and I agree wholeheartedly. Like, I've had to take mental health breaks from work because depending depending on what you're doing and depending on how many hours you're working, it can really begin to take a toll on you. And it brings me to a point. I posted a video on my main account a couple months ago. It was Mental Health Awareness Week, I believe, but it was specifically in Michigan. OSHA started mental health awareness for construction workers, like a whole week for it, because they are like the number one occupation, other than, I believe, military and PTSD and stuff from that, but it's the number one occupation of suicide rates. And the statistics of suicide rates for workers in construction, it was like 6 times higher than the amount of deaths. Actually, I think it was 10 times higher than the amount of deaths that happened on construction sites every year. It was like over 100 people were going home and killing themselves yearly, and only 8 people were dying yearly on construction sites. So OSHA was like, maybe, workplace safety, while it is an issue, there might be something deeper going on with these workers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. That brings up a really good point because it is super, super important to take care of your mental health and yourself first always.
Yeah. When I first started going to therapy, so like when after my sister died, I was like, I tried out therapy and I was like, no, this is stupid. Like everybody had pounded it into my head so hard that like therapy is stupid. It's not going to do anything for you. It's just, it's not worth it. And so when I started going to therapy this year, I like didn't tell anybody, and I would tell my boss, and it was like I have a doctor's appointment, and I went every week. I was like, I have a doctor's appointment. I have a doctor's appointment, and then I finally told him I was like, I don't actually have like full doctor's appointments. Like I'm going to therapy. And my boss was like fully supportive. And it was so strange to me to have somebody like fully be like, absolutely 100% get it. You probably, like, he knows like my sister and everything. And he was like, I 100% support you. You just tell me the day, you tell me the time, you go do your thing. I understand. And so now I don't go once a week, whatever, but I'm down to, I think, every 2 weeks. But it's still the same thing. It's like, I go tell him, I'm like, I have a therapy appointment. And he's like, what time? Just let me know. You go do your thing. And if it's like, if I have an appointment at like 3 and it's only an hour long, he's like, just take the rest of the day off. Like, it's so, like, full heartedly supportive. And it's not a super taboo thing. It's not like a hush hush thing. And
No,
even my coworkers finally got to the point where they're like, where are you going? Why do you leave every day? And I finally was like, I go to therapy, honestly. And they're like, and it was like, at first they kind of like didn't know what to say. And now they're just like, okay. Like they also support it. Like it's not a taboo thing. It's not
no,
something that needs to be brushed under the rug. It's not something you should be ashamed of. Everybody goes through things, and you shouldn't be afraid to say that, hey, I'm going to therapy. Hey, I actually have some things to work through.
yeah, a lot of these men also have women in their lives, like wives or whatnot. And chances are they've also had to go to therapy at some point in time. So it's not unheard of to them. And like you said, therapy can be a really great outlet. I've tried 2 separate occasions. I went in high school. Actually, I had a therapist that came to my house, and
Mhm.
I loved that because I'm a homebody anyway. So that was perfect for me, but she ended up like moving areas. And then I had a therapist after my mom passed away, but that one just didn't work out. So I think it's really about finding a good one that
Yeah.
works for you also.
I know too. I'd have to look at what the website is, but there is a website. I always hear it on my one podcast that I listen to when I work. But there's a website that they do online therapy, and you can like match with a therapist, and you don't get like charged if you have to switch therapists or anything like that. I wish I remembered what the heck it was called,
Is
but
it BetterHelp?
yes, that sounds right. But like you can do therapy from home even if like you're like I'm so like overwhelmed at work, or I don't really want any of my coworkers knowing that I'm leaving to go to therapy or anything like that. You can still do therapy. Like I'm not trying to push it on anybody or anything, but I'm just wanting people to know that it's not something super taboo, and there is other resources out there even if you don't feel like you're comfortable leaving work, or knowing that having everybody in your life knowing that you're going somewhere. Like you can do it
For
from your
sure.
home.
No, I think that was a great subject to talk about. Also, my therapist that I had in high school that would come to my house, we would meet like downtown and go get coffees and stuff together and then like drink our coffees while we talked. Like it was almost like having a friend that you had to pay a lot. Like,
I wish my
so
therapist did that.
Dude, so it doesn't have, I mean, there are other options, like you said, online, or if you're uncomfortable sitting in an office or you don't like that, there's like other options out there. So
Yeah, I'm trying to think like what other recommendations I have. There was something else I had. Oh, so I just another like piece I guess I had was I took the route of trade school, and I thought that so like John Deere has like a program. They have like a 2 year on like I don't know, I can't speak entirely on it because I didn't go through it, but I think it's like 8 weeks on or something like that. You go to class for a certain amount of weeks and then you come back to work for a certain amount of weeks. And it's like 2 years. And I was like, that is so drawn out. And I was like, mentally, like I would get so bored of that. Like I cannot do that. So I was like, okay, I found a school. It's called Wyotech, and it is in Wyoming, Laramie, Wyoming. And it's a 9 month program, and they just opened a welding program, but I did heavy diesel with a minor in chassis fabrication. So I know how to weld, kind of. But it actually was like the biggest mistake of my life, other than the fact that now I get paid more. So I recommend finding like a trade school only for the fact that as a mechanic, you get paid more if you do schooling. But I would not recommend Wyotech because it was like, as a woman, it was the teachers like full blown sexual harassment, and then the male students full blown sexual harassment. They don't care about their students. All they care about is money, 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 money. And it was like, I know one girl right now, she's going through like filing claims with the school for sexual harassment against teachers, and the teachers just keep brushing it under the rug. And so now she's going through like the legal process of it, and she like is trying to get enough claims like, from other female students to do something, and the school's like, well, he's not really that bad, but he's like an actual piece of garbage man. And I know when I was out there, I had one teacher who would tell me, like, make sexual comments against me in front of the whole class, and he'd be like, oh, I can show you. He'd make a sexual comment, and then he'd be like, I'm the only girl in the class, and he'd be like, I can show you that. Like, it was just such a horrible experience, and you don't actually learn like anything about mechanics.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I was gonna ask you if you recommended that school, so
No.
obviously not. But are they relate? I don't even know if I want to bring this up because I don't want to get sued, so I might message you after this about something else because I'm pretty sure there's another welding school in Wyoming.
They're not like together.
Like we shouldn't have to be afraid to want an education in the trades. So I'm sorry that you had to go through that
Yeah.
because that's freaking disgusting.
So I originally I didn't get a degree or anything. I just got like a certificate. So I paid all
Mhm.
this money. I paid like 30 grand, and I came out with a certificate. That was all I got. And so I did the chassis fabrication class, and I did that so that way I learned how to weld so I can MIG and TIG on steel. And so when I was like in the class, whatever, and I'm like welding, and the teacher would come up and he'd like throw my welds across the shop mid weld, and he'd be like, this is dog ass. And it's like third day of me learning how to TIG, but like wouldn't show me how to TIG better. And then like they would like the one teacher would like purposely not sign off on my weld because he like wanted to flunk me, because he would like make little advances on me in front of the like class, whatever, and I would like shut it down. And then so I made a YouTube video about the school because I made like a letter right before I graduated, gave it to the school about like how disappointed I was. And the school didn't do anything. So I made a YouTube video reading my letter, and the one welding teacher cornered me while I was in my cap and gown about to graduate, and like screamed me out, told me I was basically like a little bitch, and how like only pussies can't say shit to people's faces, and how I shouldn't have never took it to social media and this and that. And then my YouTube video is now taken down, so I'm pretty sure the school reported it. So, but it got like a lot of, while it was still up, it got a lot of traction. So
That's a shame. It's a shame that they put people like that in positions to teach younger generations, and then they have the audacity to defend them when they have
Yes.
disgusting behaviors.
I was told when I was there that he had like one more report against him and then he was going to be fired. And then he got another report against him and he's still there. So I don't even know. But yeah, I would not recommend Wildtech. I heard that their automotive program is also equally as garbage as their diesel program. But like, I highly recommend getting some sort of secondary education, whether it's just you go to your local community colleges. I know my community college does some sort of like trades. They do a lot of trades programs, whether it's just doing something like that, or if you want to take the route of, I know a lot of dealerships do some sort of training that they
Absolutely.
will pay for. And I recommend something like that because the pay difference is rather significant. I went from making at my dealership, I went from making, like, money is such a taboo topic. I've always been taught, but I don't really care. I went from making like $12 to almost double now, over double now.
Yeah.
So and all I did was literally just go away for 9 months and get a piece of paper and some trauma.
It definitely does help, especially as a woman, sometimes to have a little bit of prior knowledge or background or some sort of certification. And if you can't get an apprenticeship or mentorship, like you said, local community colleges generally have like a short program that you can take a semester or two and get some sort of certification to help get your
Yeah.
foot in the door and make some good money when you're starting off, like you said.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of like scholarships out there. I know when I was going to school, I literally would like Google female in trades scholarships. And I actually won one scholarship from a Napa. It was like some sort of Napa place. And I got a toolbox and a crap ton of Napa tools.
That's
And like I already
awesome.
had, yeah, I know I have a bunch of tools, but now like literally I have a whole set of Napa tools just to keep
Yeah.
at home.
Yes. You need home tools and shop tools.
Yeah, it's amazing though. But it's like there's specific scholarships for women. Like people want to help women get into trades. And when I was looking, I seen ones for like construction, I seen ones for welding, I seen ones for electrical, and you can apply for them. And I know like my one that I won from, it sounds bad, but the one that I won from Napa, it was actually an automotive one. And I was applying as a diesel like major, like a diesel mechanics major. So like if you see it and it says like auto mechanics and you're not going to school for auto mechanics, don't be afraid to apply for it.
For sure. Definitely good advice because there are tons of scholarships and people that want to sponsor women in trades, like you said, because really there's such a demand that employers don't care whether you're woman or man. As long as you work, they want to hire you. Most of the time, most employers. There are some bad ones out there, of course,
Yeah.
as with anything, but
Yeah. I
for
definitely recommend though just doing a little bit of research and finding the scholarships because there's so many out there, and even if it's just like $250, $250 goes a long way when you're talking about, I mean, even just rent
yeah.
while you're at school.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on today?
No, I don't think so.
I think that we covered a lot of really good topics. You gave a lot of really good advice. If anyone's struggling with their mental health, I just want to encourage you to look online for resources since we talked about that today. You guys can follow along with Abigail's adventures at daddysmoney00 on TikTok. And thank you so much for joining me today. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, definitely. My DMs are always open, especially on TikTok and Instagram, especially even if it's just you want to talk about mental health. I'm always an open book. I'm always here to talk to people. I know what it's like to feel alone. I know what it's like to not want to talk to family about things. Completely open. I'm not judgmental. Even if it's just you want to talk about trades, anything, I'm a complete open book.
Absolutely. So are mine. And I think that we had a really good episode today. Once again, thank you for joining me. You guys follow along with her adventures, and we will see you all on the next episode.